Whisperglass. Prologue. The road to the lake house was long, sun-drenched and full of laughter. They were halfway through Pennsylvania now, windows down, music loud, snacks flying, with the kind of chaotic energy that only happens when school ends and summer begins. The kind where the future felt close enough to touch, but far enough to ignore for just a little longer. Ava Morales was at the wheel, her sunglasses catching the sun like twin mirrors. She drove like she did everything else in life, bold, steady, and with the quiet confidence of someone who'd already mapped out a dozen ways to handle whatever came next. Her hair was tied up in a quick, messy bun, and one arm leaned against the open window as she sped down the winding back roads like she owned them. "It's giving girl boss on the run," she said, voice over the thump of whatever playlist she'd curated for this exact moment. "Eli, how's my hair? Do I look like I murdered someone but made it fashion?" Eli Baxter sat passenger, sketchpad balanced on one knee, pencil dancing almost without him thinking. "You look like you'd outdrive the cops and then post a selfie at the gas station after." "I accept that." In the back seat, Zeke Holloway had his feet propped up on the edge of the window, head bobbing to the beat, tossing peanut M&Ms into his mouth, and mostly missing. One landed squarely on Rowan Sinclair's forehead. She didn't even flinch, just turned her head slowly and raised one eyebrow. "I'm gonna hex your car keys," she said, voice smooth as honey. "You'd never," Zeke grinned. "Then I'd be stuck here, and you need me to open your jars." "Jars and jars of nonsense," she murmured, pulling her tarot deck from her bag and laying it across her knees. Beside them, Nadia Bell sat between the chaos like a rock in the storm, headphones in one ear, scrolling through photos on her phone, occasionally glancing at Eli. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes lingered just a little too long on a picture of the two of them last Halloween, before things got weird, before the distance crept in. This summer was supposed to fix that. "ETA 22 minutes, Ava announced, tapping the GPS. "Unless we stop again, which we will not." "Oh my God, we stopped once," Zeke groaned. "Twice. 3 times if you count the weird rock formation that looked like a screaming baby." "That rock had vibes," Rowan added. "Don't encourage him," Ava sighed. The car hummed with that perfect, almost electric blend of familiarity and change. They'd known each other since freshman year, some even longer. All 5 of them had circled each other in classrooms and parking lots, cafeteria tables and school dances, until they weren't just classmates. They were orbiting each other's lives. It wasn't just friendship, it was family, by choice. The lake house sat on the edge of Stillwater Lake, named for the glassy surface that never seemed to ripple, no matter the wind. Ava's grandfather had bought the property back in the 70s, a 2-story colonial-style home with a wraparound porch and too many windows. He called it the Sanctuary. He'd offered it up casually over dinner a month ago, telling Ava, "I'll be in and out all summer, business in Italy, some property to deal with. You and your friends can have the house, just don't burn it down." "Define burn," she'd said. He didn't laugh, he just winked. Now, as the road narrowed and the lake came into view, something shifted in the air. The jokes slowed, the playlist ended. A soft hush fell over the group, not ominous but reverent, The kind of silence that comes with arriving somewhere that already feels like it'll change you. "Holy crap," Zeke said, nose pressed to the glass. "It's huge." The house loomed at the top of a gentle hill, white paint chipped in places, ivy curling along one side like fingers clinging to an old secret. Trees lined the driveway in a perfect arch, and the lake shimmered behind it like a mirror stretching into the trees. "Looks like a postcard," Nadia said softly. "Looks like a Stephen King book cover," Rowan murmured. Ava parked in the gravel lot out front, engine cutting off with a final hum. They stepped out, stretching and taking it in. The air smelled like pine and something older, like wood smoke, or rain that hadn't fallen yet. Eli stood still for a moment longer than the others, staring at the upstairs window. His sketchpad was still in his lap. He flipped it open, hands slow. There, already sketched in pencil days ago, the lake house. Too exact, too detailed, down to the broken pane in the upper right window. He closed the sketchbook fast. Unpacking was chaos in the best way. Rowan claimed the sunroom immediately, laying out her crystals and incense like a traveling witch shop. Zeke and Eli took the attic, where the ceiling slanted and the windows creaked when you opened them. Nadia and Ava split the room with the balcony, arguing for all of 2 minutes before deciding on twin beds and equal closet space. The kitchen was stocked, the fridge humming, the furniture covered in plastic sheeting, which Zeke dramatically pulled off like a magician at every turn. "This couch," he announced, falling into it, "has seen things." Ava leaned against the doorframe. "Like your grades?" Laughter bounced off the walls, familiar and golden. They spent that first night around the fire pit outside, wrapped in sweatshirts and blankets, sharing memories like popcorn. "How did this even happen?" Zeke asked, marshmallow in hand. "Like, all of us?" "Chem class," Eli said. "Art club," Rowan added. "Detention," Nadia smirked. Ava raised her hand. "It was me. I handpicked you weirdos like a casting director. Eli for his tortured artist vibes, Rowan for the witchcraft, Zeke for comic relief, Nadia for stability, me for hotness and leadership." "Delusional," Nadia muttered. "But fair," Zeke grinned. Eli smiled, gaze flickering between them. "I remember the first time I talked to you, Ava. You were cutting class and trying to hide in the art room. Because Coach Lister was doing the girls run slower speech again," she said. "You threw a paintbrush at his car." "A protest," she said proudly. They shared that look, the one that only old friends or future heartbreaks could understand. By the third day, they were in a rhythm. Lake swims, late-night horror movies, grocery runs, tarot readings, half-started conversations about college and adulthood and what came next. Ava was headed to NYU journalism. She had a notebook filled with internship plans and possible headlines. Eli was undecided. His acceptance letters were unopened, literally. They sat in a drawer at home. Nadia was set on a psychology program in Chicago. She hadn't told Eli yet. Zeke was going to community college, maybe film, maybe not. He hadn't told Rowan he might not go at all. Rowan was taking a gap year, claiming she needed space to spiritually recalibrate, though really, she just didn't know what she wanted. They were all so sure and so lost. But here, for now, they were just 5 kids on summer break, laughing, flirting, swimming, eating frozen pizza for breakfast. For now. That night, the first weird thing happened. It wasn't loud or scary, just strange. Ava woke up to the sound of whispers. She sat up slowly. The room was dark, the air still. The sound came from the mirror above her dresser, a soft, indecipherable murmur, like someone speaking underwater. She stood, heart thudding, and stepped closer. The whispers stopped. Her own reflection stared back, but for just a moment, her reflection was still smiling, even though she wasn't. Chapter 1. The First Reflection. The morning after Ava saw the smile in the mirror, the lake was still, too still. Not a breeze stirred the trees, not a single ripple disturbed the glassy surface outside the porch windows. Sunlight poured over the water in gold ribbons, but something about it felt off, like light bouncing off a photograph instead of something real. Ava didn't mention what she saw. Not yet. Not because she didn't trust the others, but because she couldn't explain it. Maybe it had been a dream, a trick of the light. A weird half-waking thing brought on by too much fire pit s'mores and late-night root beer. But deep down, she knew better. "Someone refill the coffee before I stab the sun," Nadia grumbled, trudging into the kitchen in sweatpants and a band tee, hair in a pineapple bun. Rowan was already at the table with her cards fanned out, mug steaming, looking like a boho queen on a caffeine throne. Zeke peeked over her shoulder. "Do the cards say I'll get hot over the summer?" "They say your thirst for attention is incurable," Rowan deadpanned. "Nice," Ava said, walking in with a yawn. "Make sure to shuffle well. Don't want yesterday's juju." "What's yesterday's juju?" Eli said, emerging from the hallway with his sketch pad tucked under his arm. "Secret," Ava said quickly. He noticed her eyes dart to the hallway mirror, just for a second. Later that afternoon, they wandered into town. Stillwater wasn't big, but it had its charm. A corner bookstore, a cafe with dusty ceiling fans, a thrift shop that smelled like incense and mothballs, an antique shop Ava's grandfather had always warned her not to go near. "Not because it's cursed," he once said, "because the owner talks too much." They bought Polaroid film, sandwiches, a few lake floaties. Zeke found a toy harmonica and played it until everyone threatened to leave him behind. The sun was high, and for a while, everything felt normal. That was the trick of Whisperglass. It let you believe nothing was wrong. That night, Eli stayed up late drawing. He sat on the balcony outside his attic room, legs folded, sketchpad in his lap. Below him, the lake glittered, black and endless. Above, the stars blinked like they were watching. His pencil moved fast. He didn't always know what he was drawing until it was done. A door, a long hallway, a mirror, cracked, a face. He stared at the final image, a twisted version of himself smiling in a way his own mouth couldn't, not with teeth like that. He shut the book, shoved it under his bed, and went downstairs for a drink. That's when he saw it. The mirror in the hallway, just outside the bathroom. Everyone had passed it a dozen times. It was old, maybe antique, rimmed in tarnished gold and set too low on the wall, but this time, his reflection wasn't moving. Eli froze. His breath caught. He tilted his head slowly, and the reflection didn't follow. It stared back, eyes wide, curious. Then it blinked, backwards. He stumbled back, heart hammering, and the reflection finally copied him. But it was too late. The timing was off. It was pretending. "Okay," he whispered, forcing a breath. "Okay. I'm tired. Just tired." He turned away, and the reflection smiled behind him. The next morning, Rowan knocked softly on Eli's door. He opened it slower than usual, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "You look like you didn't sleep," she said, stepping in. Her incense trailed behind her like mist. "Didn't," he muttered. "Bad dreams." She nodded, eyes scanning the room. "The energy in this house is weird, like echoing, old." Echoing how? Rowan pulled a crystal from her pocket. Things feel repeated, but not right, like an echo that's not your voice. Eli stared at her. You ever have a mirror? Move before you do? Rowan froze. Then slowly she nodded. That night, Ava brushed her teeth in the upstairs bathroom, music playing softly from her phone. She looked up into the mirror, and her reflection wasn't brushing its teeth. It was just watching her. Still, unmoving. She dropped her toothbrush. The reflection smiled softly, gently, as if to say, "We've been waiting for you." Chapter 2. Cracks in the glass. The day started off normal, but that was the thing about Whisperglass. It never let you keep that feeling for long. The sunlight that poured in through the windows had a weird quality, like it was bouncing off something invisible in the air. Rowan noticed it first. She stood in the kitchen early, coffee in hand, watching the way the light refracted across the countertop. It bent wrong. Not just once. Over and over, like a shimmer that didn't belong. She didn't say anything. Not yet. Across the hall, Zeke leaned against the bathroom sink, brushing his teeth, humming some ridiculous tune into the mirror. His reflection did the same, offbeat and silly, until it didn't. Mid-hum, Zeke leaned down to spit, normal enough, and when he looked back up, the mirror still showed him hunched down. He froze. His own reflection was still brushing its teeth, still humming. Then, slowly, it looked at him. It grinned. That's new, Zeke thought. He blinked hard, rubbed his eyes, and when he looked again, everything was back to normal. The toothbrush dropped into the sink with a clatter. Later that morning, the five of them gathered on the porch, pretending not to feel weird, pretending things were still easy. "I say Lake Day," Ava announced, tying her hair into a ponytail. "We're officially overdue for a sunburn." "Pass," Rowan said, eyes fixed on her tarot spread. "The vibes are off." "The vibes are always off," Nadia muttered. Zeke stepped outside, towel around his neck, sunglasses already on. "Yo, anyone seen my hoodie?" "What hoodie?" Ava asked. Zeke frowned. "The navy one. It was on my bed," Nadia pointed. "You're wearing it." Zeke looked down. He was. "But I was just looking for it in the attic." They all exchanged a glance. Small, subtle, but it stuck. "You good?" Eli asked. "Yeah," Zeke said quickly. "Totally. I'm just tired." Inside, Nadia stood alone in the hallway bathroom, wiping her face with a damp cloth. The mirror above the sink was fogged from the warm water. She stared at it. Something in her gut told her not to look, but she did. At first, nothing. Then, slowly, a message appeared in the condensation. "He knows." She backed up fast, slamming into the towel rack. The message stayed. When she blinked again, it was gone. Her hand trembled as she picked up the cloth. She didn't say a word about it all day. That night, after dinner and sunset, they sat on the living room rug with a bowl of leftover popcorn and a deck of mismatched playing cards. Ava had declared a game night. "Because we are not going to pretend we're not all acting weird as hell." "Truth or dare," Zeke suggested. "Too basic," Rowan said. "Let's do most likely to. Each person gets a card. We vote who fits the title. Most votes, drinks." "But we're not drinking," Nadia reminded. "Then most votes tells a secret," Ava said, eyes glinting. "We'll call it Truth by Reflection." "That's the worst name I've ever heard," Zeke said. Ava smiled sweetly. "You're just scared." They played. "Most likely to end up famous?" "Ava, Most likely to get arrested? Zeke. Most likely to survive a horror movie? Nadia. Most likely to betray the group? Eli. Everyone went quiet. Eli's smile faltered. Wow, cool, great. Hey, it's just a game, Zeke said quickly. But the room felt colder now. Nadia's hands tightened in her lap. Ava opened her mouth to change the subject, but then came the sound. Glass. Shattering. They all jumped. The mirror in the living room, the one above the fireplace, had cracked clean through the center. No one had touched it. A thin line split it top to bottom like a scar. Did you guys hear anything hit it? Rowan asked. No one touched it, Ava said. I saw. We were all here. Eli stood slowly. It cracked when we said betray. The silence was thick now. Zeke laughed. Okay, that's it. I'm declaring this house officially haunted, or cursed, or allergic to our friendship. But no one laughed with him. Rowan got up, walked to the mirror, and stared into it. Her reflection didn't match her. It was smiling. Later that night, everyone was in their rooms. The hallway was dark. The only light came from the windows, casting pale rectangles on the floor. Ava couldn't sleep. She got up, walked to the bathroom. The mirror was still cracked. As she turned to leave, she saw something in the corner of her eye. Another mirror, one she hadn't noticed before, on the far wall of the hallway. It was showing something strange. Not the hallway. It showed the living room, and in the reflection, someone was standing there. Someone with long dark hair. A mirror version of Ava. Watching. Waiting. She turned her head toward the living room. Empty. When she looked back at the mirror, it was just her again. Her chest rose and fell. Her pulse roared in her ears. Somewhere in the attic, a floorboard creaked. Chapter 3. Room of Echoes. Zeke was the first one up, which was weird in itself. He was always the last to wake, but this morning the air in the attic had been stifling, like the room was holding its breath. He couldn't sleep, kept hearing faint thumps through the floorboards, like someone walking just below him. So he rolled out of bed, pulled on a hoodie, and padded down the stairs, barefoot and quiet. The kitchen was still, the windows a soft gray from the rising morning fog, and someone was already there. Zeke froze in the doorway. It was him, sitting at the table, legs stretched out, hoodie the same shade, spoon in hand, casually eating cereal. His twin, his reflection, but real. The other Zeke looked up, met his eyes, smiled, then stood, walked past him, opened the back door, and vanished into the mist. Zeke didn't move for nearly a full minute. His mind scrambled for logic, a prank, a dream, a trick of the light. Finally, he muttered aloud, "That's enough weed for this trip." He closed the door, locked it. Didn't tell anyone. Later that morning, Ava wandered upstairs in search of her portable charger. It wasn't in the bedroom, not in the bathroom. She opened doors randomly, getting increasingly annoyed. That's when she noticed it. A door at the end of the hallway she didn't remember. It was slightly ajar, barely. She walked toward it. Inside was a narrow, dark room, lined with mirrors on all four walls, old, tarnished, some cracked at the corners, a few covered with cloth. The air was freezing. She stepped inside. Every mirror reflected a different version of reality. In one, she saw Rowan curled up on the couch, nose bleeding. In another, Zeke was screaming into a pillow. In a third, Nadia stood in the kitchen alone, her shoulders shaking, and in one near the back, Ava saw herself, but running, hard, fast, face pale with terror. She backed up and slammed the door shut, didn't tell anyone, not yet. Eli was outside sketching again, legs stretched out on the porch steps, his pencil moving in loops he didn't consciously control. He kept drawing the same shape, a handprint pressed against glass, over and over. Nadia came outside and sat beside him. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile. "You haven't really been around," she said finally. "You mean you haven't?" he said, not looking up. She stared out at the lake. "I saw something. In the mirror." His pencil stopped. "I saw a message, written in fog. It said, 'He knows.'" She glanced at him. "You ever see something like that?" Eli hesitated. Then, "Yeah." Nadia's throat tightened. "I didn't want to say anything," she admitted. "I thought maybe I was losing it." "You're not," Eli said quietly. "You're not." And for a moment, they were just two kids in over their heads, sitting on a porch that belonged to a house that wasn't quite asleep. Rowan was in the hallway, passing the long wall of mirrors near the stairs. She'd started counting them days ago, out of instinct. There were always 10. Today there were 11. She stopped, turned. The new one was oval-shaped, gilded in twisted silver. Inside, it didn't show the hallway. It showed her old bedroom, her real house, the one back home. She saw herself lying in bed, peaceful, dreaming. She reached out, pressed her fingertips to the glass. Her reflection didn't move. Rowan yanked her hand back, stumbling into the wall. Then she turned and bolted down the stairs. Didn't say a word. That night, they all sat together in the living room, phones charging, the TV murmuring in the background. But no one was watching. They were too quiet, too aware. Ava's eyes flicked to the hallway every so often. Zeke kept checking the windows. Eli had his sketchpad closed for the first time. Rowan stared into her tea like it might give her answers. Nadia finally broke the silence. "Something's wrong with this house," she said, voice small, a beat. Zeke sighed, rubbing his eyes. "Okay. Yeah, we're all thinking it, right?" "I saw myself," he added, "in the kitchen this morning, eating cereal. I was upstairs." Then he smiled and walked out. Ava looked up sharply. "You too?" They all turned to her. Ava nodded slowly. "I found a room, full of mirrors. It showed different things, things that haven't happened yet." Rowan exhaled like she'd been holding it all day. "The mirrors aren't mirrors. They're watching us." Eli opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "I've been drawing things I haven't seen yet, before they happen. And I don't know if it's me causing them or predicting them." The silence grew thick and heavy, like the walls were listening. Then Zeke's voice cracked the air. "Why us?" A pause. No one had an answer. That night, Zeke woke up to his own laughter echoing up from downstairs. He sat up fast. Eli was asleep. The attic was dark. The air was cold. He stood, quietly crept down the stairs, each step groaning under his weight. The living room lights were off, but in the center of the room, illuminated by the pale moonlight through the window, sat his reflection, cross-legged, calm, looking right at him. "You laugh so easy," it said softly. "It's easy to wear you." Zeke didn't speak, couldn't. The reflection stood slowly and grinned. "Next time," it whispered, "don't leave the door open." The lights flicked, and Zeke blinked. Gone. Chapter 4. Truth in the Glass. The next morning was quiet. Not peaceful. Quiet. Like the house was watching. Ava stood at the kitchen sink, her coffee untouched, staring into the window above it. Her reflection stared back, matching her every move this time. But it was too perfect, like it was waiting for her to slip. The others trickled in slowly. No one said good morning, no one commented on the way the house felt colder even though the sun was out. Rowan was the first to speak. "Let's talk," she said, pulling out a chair at the table. Zeke raised an eyebrow. "Like intervention talk or Scooby-Doo talk?" Rowan's eyes didn't flinch. "The mirrors, the voices, the doubles, all of it." And just like that, the silence cracked. They laid it all out. Zeke told them about seeing himself in the kitchen, and again, last night. Ava described the mirror room in detail, the way it showed futures, or alternate versions of them, how she saw herself running. Eli opened his sketch pad and flipped through pages of drawings that hadn't happened yet, but now had. The house, the broken mirror, Zeke screaming, a handprint on glass. Rowan shared what she saw in the hallway, that the mirrors were multiplying, showing moments from other timelines, other versions of them, how she touched the glass, and her reflection didn't move. Nadia stayed quiet until Ava looked directly at her. "Nadia." She swallowed. "The mirror wrote to me. Fogged glass. He knows. And I didn't tell you. Because I was scared." Everyone stared at each other for a long moment. And then Zeke said the thing they'd all been afraid to say. "What does it want?" Later that afternoon, Eli went up to the attic alone. He sat cross-legged with his sketch pad, flipping to a blank page. He didn't know what he was drawing. He never did. But his hand moved like something else was guiding it. This time, it drew a door, a plain door, with something written above it. He leaned closer. Truth. Underneath the door in the drawing, 5 tiny stick figures. One was circled. Zeke. Downstairs, Zeke was pacing, jittery, joking to himself like it would keep him grounded. Nadia sat on the couch, picking at her nails. "You okay?" she asked. Zeke nodded, too fast. "Zeke." He sat down hard, elbows on his knees. I think something's wrong with me." "What do you mean?" "I feel like something's in here with us, in the mirrors. But it's not trying to scare us. It's trying to replace us." He didn't look at her. "I think it already has," he whispered. Rowan was in the upstairs hallway again, following a sound, a faint humming. It led her to the mirror near the linen closet. Inside, she didn't see herself. She saw her mother, crying. Then it shifted, flashes. Her childhood bedroom, her as a little girl, her holding a box of matches, a house on fire. Rowan backed away, gasping. The mirror fogged, then cleared. Her reflection returned, and it was still crying. Ava stood alone in the room of echoes. She hadn't shown the others the door yet, but she couldn't keep it from them much longer. She stared into the mirror that showed her running. The background was changing now, no longer the house. Now it showed the woods, and something chasing her. That night, they all gathered again. This time with no jokes, no snacks, no lights, just flashlights and raw fear. "I think this house is reflecting us," Ava said. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, our choices, our secrets. It's showing us what we hide, Rowan whispered. Zeke sat forward. And if it knows our truth, it can be us. Nadia shivered. So what do we do? Eli tore out the sketch of the door, slid it onto the table. This is the only thing I haven't seen yet. It's somewhere in this house. I think it leads to the heart of it. Ava stood. Then we find it. Chapter 5. The Door of Truth. They searched the house in pairs. Zeke and Rowan took the attic. Ava and Nadia moved through the lower floors. Eli, quiet, tense, sketchpad in hand, searched alone. It wasn't the smartest move, but none of this felt smart anymore. It felt inevitable. Zeke's flashlight beam swept across the sloped attic ceiling, illuminating old boxes and cobweb-draped trunks, the kind of stuff horror movies warned you to leave alone. No creepy doors yet, he said, chewing on the end of his hoodie sleeve. Just enough dust to bury my GPA. Rowan stayed quiet, tracing her hand along the wooden beam as if feeling for a pulse. Do you feel that? She asked suddenly. Zeke paused. Feel what? Rowan turned, eyes wide. Like the walls are breathing. Before he could respond, his flashlight flickered. Then hers. Then total blackness. Rowan inhaled sharply, and a sound, not quite a whisper, not quite a laugh, slid through the darkness like a breeze. Zeke grabbed her hand. The lights came back, and the attic door at the far end, the one nailed shut just days ago, was open. Downstairs, Ava and Nadia stood in front of a mirror that hadn't been there yesterday. Oval, tall, silver-trimmed. Ava stepped forward, raising her flashlight. This time, her reflection was missing entirely. In its place, the mirror version of Zeke. Standing in a hallway, facing away. Slowly turning his head toward them. Ava reached out. Nadia caught her wrist. Don't touch it. Why not? Because I think they want us to. A soft click echoed through the house. Eli's voice, distant. Guys, I found something. They gathered near the basement stairs. Eli stood holding a flashlight in his drawing, pale and tense. I saw it in a dream last night, he said. Didn't think it was real, but it's here. He led them down slowly. The basement was cold, damp, the smell of old cement and rotting wood. In the far corner, behind a shelf of tools and dust-covered jars, was a door. Just like the drawing, plain wood, metal knob, and carved above it in barely legible letters, Truth. Everyone froze. No one spoke. Finally, Ava stepped forward. Everyone needs to decide now, she said. We open this. There's no going back. Zeke inhaled sharply. You think this is the way out? I think, Ava said, this is the heart of it. Whatever this house is, it started here. Rowan reached for the doorknob. Wait, Nadia whispered. They turned, but Nadia wasn't looking at the door. She was looking at Zeke. Where's your necklace? Zeke blinked. What? The chain you wear every day. Your mom gave it to you. Zeke touched his neck. Nothing. His eyes widened. That's not Zeke, Nadia whispered. Ava stepped back. Zeke? He laughed. But it wasn't Zeke's laugh. It was the mirror version. You took too long, he said, voice low and wrong. He was easy. The lights cut out, screaming, shouting, shuffling feet. When the light snapped back, Zeke was gone, just his flashlight, spinning slowly on the floor. Chapter 6. Into the Door. The silence after Zeke vanished was the loudest thing any of them had ever heard. The flashlight rolled to a stop on the basement floor, the beam tilted upward, casting warped shadows on the ceiling. Rowan was the first to move. She picked it up and stared at the door marked Truth, like it might bite her. "He's still in there," she said. Ava nodded, jaw tight. "Then we go in." Eli grabbed her arm. "Wait, we don't know what's on the other side." "Zeke didn't either," Nadia snapped. "That didn't stop him." "No," Eli said. "It stopped us." But it didn't matter. Ava was already turning the knob. The door opened with a hiss like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside was darkness. Not pitch black, but a darkness that felt alive, the kind that waits. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic, blood, maybe. The flashlight beams cut through fog that hadn't been there seconds before. They stepped inside. The room was massive, bigger than the basement should have allowed. Walls made entirely of mirrors stretched upward, outward, endlessly. Each mirror pulsed with dim light, and within them were versions of themselves. Dozens, hundreds. Some were younger, some older, some crying, some covered in blood. They stopped walking. "This isn't a room," Rowan whispered. "It's a mind." Ava stepped forward, scanning each mirror. "Zeke!" she called. Somewhere far off, a voice echoed back, "Ava." They all turned. It had come from the mirror on the far right wall, tall, jagged at the top. It showed Zeke standing in a hallway, this house, but different. Older, broken, every wall burned black. He looked terrified. "I don't know where I am," he said. "Can you hear us?" Nadia asked. Zeke nodded. "I see you. Through the mirrors, but they don't lead the same way." Eli reached toward the glass. It rippled under his fingers. "He's behind the reflection," Eli whispered. "Like, trapped between." Ava stepped up beside him. "We get him out." They split again, each person drawn to a mirror. Nadia stopped in front of one that pulsed with warmth. It showed her sitting in a classroom, laughing with Eli. No pain, no distance, just them. "None of this happened," she whispered. The mirror flickered, then showed Eli crying, alone, drawing, then back to her laughing, over and over. She stepped away, hand over her mouth. Rowan stood before a mirror showing a future that hadn't happened. She was pregnant, holding someone's hand. She looked peaceful. Then the image flashed, her in a hospital bed, eyes empty, blood covering the walls. She backed away, trembling. Eli's mirror was blank at first. Then a version of him appeared, older, wild-eyed, standing in front of a wall of drawings. Everyone showed the house, and in every one he was alone. "Is that me?" he whispered. The reflection turned to look at him. "No," it said. "It's what you'll become if you stay silent." Ava's mirror showed her standing on the porch of the lake house years from now. Alone. Everyone else gone. She was older, bitter. The notebook in her hands full of entries no one would ever read. Then the reflection looked at her. "You lead them," it whispered, "but you don't save them." Ava stepped back. "No," she said aloud. "Not this time." She turned to the others. "We bring him back, no matter what we saw." They nodded. Together they walked toward the cracked mirror, holding Zeke. Rowan reached out first. Her hand passed through the surface like water, cold, pulling. Eli followed, then Nadia. Ava turned once more to the room. The mirrors began to hum, low, deep, resonating with a heartbeat that wasn't hers. She stepped in last. The mirror swallowed her whole. On the other side was darkness. They stood in a twisted version of the house, walls scorched, air thick with smoke. Mirrors lined the hallway, but none of them showed reflections, only doors, each one labeled with a name. They turned slowly, every heartbeat louder now. Zeke's voice came from down the hall. "Help me!" They ran. Chapter 7. The One Who Watches. The hallway was endless, twisting, breathing, warped like it had been made from melted memories. The walls shimmered with embedded mirrors, but unlike before, these weren't reflections. They were eyes, watching. Nadia reached out to steady herself as they ran, her fingers grazing the wall, and it flinched. She yanked her hand back. "This place is alive," she whispered. "Keep going!" Ava shouted, her voice echoing too loud, too wrong. Zeke's voice was still calling, closer now. They turned a corner and entered a wide chamber lit only by the soft, silver glow of a massive mirror. In front of it, on his knees, Zeke. He was pale, shivering, his hoodie torn and eyes wide. "Zeke!" Rowan ran to him, dropping to her knees. He looked up slowly. "You came." Ava approached cautiously. "Is it really you?" Zeke's lip trembled. I think so." Behind them the mirror shimmered, and something stepped forward. It didn't have a face, just a suggestion of one. A hollow dip where the eyes should be. A twisted frame of something human-shaped, made of silver and glass and shadow. It moved like mercury, dripping and slithering without touching the ground. They all froze. Eli stepped between it and the others. "Who are you?" The voice wasn't spoken aloud. It slid into their heads like oil in water. "I am what is seen. I am the mirror of the soul. I am the secret you bury." Rowan whispered, "You're not a ghost." "No. I am the reflection. You created me, each lie, each silence, each fear you swallowed instead of speaking. I grew from that." Zeke stood, wobbling. "It used me. I couldn't stop it. It made me say things, do things." Nadia pulled him into a hug, her voice shaking. "You're okay now." The entity moved closer. "He is hollow now, easy to wear. But you," it turned its faceless head toward Eli, "you are still drawing. You still see what you should not." Eli lifted his sketch pad, ready to rip it in half. "Do it," the voice hissed. "Destroy it, and I will let one of you leave." They all froze. Ava's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" The mirror behind the entity rippled, showing Nadia lying on the ground in the real world, pale and unmoving. Zeke screamed, "No, no, she's here with us." But the reflection showed otherwise. "You are not whole anymore," it whispered. Rowan stepped forward. "You don't control us." "I don't have to. You came willingly." And with that, the ground beneath them split. They fell. Darkness again. Then, they landed hard in a room of mirrors. Each one now showed a different version of them. Some happy, some twisted, some monstrous. Ava crawled to her feet. "We choose who we are, right now." Nadia stood next. "We don't belong to this place." Eli pulled Zeke up. "We're going home." Rowan pointed to the center mirror. It showed the real house, the one they'd left behind. "The way out." They ran toward it, The entity screamed behind them, 1,000 voices breaking glass. Just as they reached the mirror, it shattered, but they leapt through. They hit the wooden floor of the living room hard. Sunlight spilled through the windows. They were back. Zeke sobbed. Ava gasped. Eli threw up. Nadia lay unconscious but breathing. Rowan looked up at the fireplace. The mirror above it was gone. Chapter 8. The House Remembers. For the first time in days, the sun poured through the lake house windows like gold. The birds outside chirped like nothing had happened. The surface of Stillwater Lake was calm again, untouched, perfect, too perfect. They lay there for a long time, sprawled on the hardwood floor, trying to breathe like normal people again. Zeke sobbed into Nadia's shoulder, and Ava whispered something into the air that no one could hear. Rowan sat with her back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, watching the dust shift in the sunlight. Eli stared into his sketchpad at a blank page, then he closed it, hard. Nadia stirred and groaned, her eyes fluttering open. Ava was beside her in an instant. Hey, you're okay." Nadia blinked up at her. "Are we out?" Ava hesitated, then nodded. For now. They didn't leave the house, not yet. Part of it was exhaustion, part of it was fear that the moment they stepped outside, the house would pull them back in. So they stayed. They cleaned, showered, cooked pasta they barely ate, tried to be normal. Zeke sat in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, hands still shaking. "It wore me," he whispered to no one in particular. "It laughed like me, walked like me." Rowan sat beside him. "But it wasn't you." "It was," he said. "Part of me. The part one didn't want to look at." Eli spoke up from across the room. "It's not over." Everyone turned. He held up his sketch pad. There on the blank page was a drawing, one he hadn't made. The lake house, their car in the driveway, and inside the house, the entity, watching them from a mirror. But there were no mirrors left in the house, right? Ava got up, walking the halls with a purpose. Every mirror in the house had either shattered or been removed. The bathroom, gone. The living room, destroyed. The bedrooms, empty. But when she reached the guest room closet, she saw it. A shard, just a sliver. A piece of broken mirror lying face up on the floor. She crouched. The reflection in the shard wasn't hers. It was Rowan's. But Rowan wasn't behind her. The reflection blinked. Ava backed away, heartbeat slamming against her ribs. Later that night, they tried to sleep. One more night. Just one. Then they'd leave. Zeke and Rowan took the attic again, this time together. No one wanted to be alone. Ava sat on the porch, staring at the lake. Eli stayed downstairs, drawing in silence. Nadia stood in front of the fridge, staring into it but not really seeing anything. Then she heard a laugh, soft, gentle, her laugh. She turned. The hallway was empty, but from the bathroom door, cracked slightly open, she saw a flicker of light and a shape. She took one step forward, then another. Eli's pencil snapped in his hand. He looked down. On the paper, his last drawing had changed. It now showed Nadia standing in front of a mirror, reaching out to it. Inside the mirror wasn't her. It was something else, something smiling. Eli stood so fast he knocked over his chair. Upstairs, Rowan dreamed of a hallway of mirrors, of Zeke walking beside her, of herself reflected 100 times, but one of them wasn't her. It waved, then stepped out of the glass. Back in the kitchen, Ava turned to see Nadia walking slowly past. "Nadia?" she called. But Nadia didn't answer, just smiled. and kept walking toward the mirror shard in the guest room closet. Chapter 9. Not All Reflections. Fade. The next morning felt wrong from the moment the sky turned gray. It wasn't storming, it wasn't foggy, but something about the light outside the windows had changed, like the sun had shifted just a few inches to the left and no one told the earth. Zeke sat at the kitchen table, barely chewing his cereal. Rowan poured coffee with a hand that trembled more than she'd admit. Ava stared at the door like she was daring it to move. Eli was pacing, and Nadia hadn't come downstairs. "She's probably just sleeping in," Rowan said, trying to keep her voice even. "She never sleeps past 9, Eli muttered. Ava stood. "I'll go check." She headed up the stairs 2 at a time. At Nadia's door, she knocked once, then pushed it open. The bed was made, neat, too neat. The air in the room felt cold, even though the window was shut, a chill that seemed to come from the walls. "Nadia!" she called. No answer. She turned and caught sight of something that made her stomach twist. In the closet, the broken mirror shard was gone. Downstairs, Eli froze mid-step. He turned to Rowan. "You said she was asleep." Rowan blinked. "That's what I thought. Why?" Eli held up his sketch pad. On the latest page, drawn in heavy, smeared graphite, was Nadia, but not her. The eyes were too wide, the smile too tight. The reflection had taken her place. Ava returned a minute later, face pale. "She's not in her room." Zeke stood. "Then where?" Nadia walked in. Or someone wearing her did. Hair perfect, hoodie clean, no bags under her eyes, movement smooth, too smooth. "Morning," she said. Everyone froze. Ava's voice cracked slightly. "Where were you?" Nadia smiled. "Just getting some air. Couldn't sleep." Zeke slowly moved toward her, eyes narrowing. "Say something only you would know." She blinked. "Excuse me?" He stared. "When I got drunk at your cousin's birthday, what did I call the inflatable unicorn?" Her eyes narrowed. "What kind of question?" "What did I call it?" he snapped. She hesitated. Then, "Ava, tell him to chill." Wrong answer. Everyone stepped back, even Rowan. Eli whispered, "That's not her." Nadia's smile didn't fade. In fact, it got wider. "I'm so tired of pretending," she said. Then her voice cracked like glass, and in her place stood nothing, just shadow, and a flicker of her face, stretching, screaming, and collapsing inward like light through a warped lens. She was gone. They stood in silence for what felt like hours. Then Ava said it out loud. "She's still in the house." They searched. Every room, every hallway, every inch. But Nadia was gone, like she'd never been there at all. All that remained in her room was her phone, sitting on her pillow, unlocked, playing the voice memo she'd recorded the night before. She'd been crying. "I don't think it let us leave. I think it's still here. And I think it's in me. I can feel it, scratching behind my eyes like it's trying to remember how to wear my skin. If you find this, please don't let it wear me." That night, no one slept. They sat in the living room, backs against walls, lights on. Eli tore out every mirror shard he could find, used tape to mark doors, carved sigils from Rowan's book into the floors. He muttered half-spells, protective circles, Latin phrases that made no sense, but made them feel less helpless. Zeke sat by the fire, holding the necklace he almost lost. Rowan held Ava's hand. No one cried, not because they weren't sad, but because they were too scared to make noise. Somewhere, deep in the walls of Whisperglass, a mirror waits. And behind it, Nadia screams. Chapter 10. A Map of Shadows. The house was colder now. It wasn't just the windows or the lake breeze. It was the way the air felt heavier, like the house had shifted after Nadia vanished, like it had rearranged itself slightly, just enough to stay one step ahead. They barely spoke that morning. Zeke moved through the house with a knife from the kitchen tucked in his waistband. Rowan had stopped using her tarot deck. Ava hadn't written in her notebook since the night of the mirror room. And Eli had stopped drawing. They found the journal by accident. It was behind a false wall panel in Ava's grandfather's study, discovered while Rowan was looking for candles. A small leather-bound book, aged and brittle, with a single word carved into the front: Whisperglass. Ava flipped it open with shaking fingers. The first page was dated 1976. I bought this land thinking I was escaping the noise of the world. But I didn't escape anything. I just moved closer to it. The lake was always too still. The windows always too reflective. I told myself it was the wind. That the creaking floors were just old bones settling. But I know better now. The house is watching me. They read every page. Her grandfather had experienced it too. The mirror movements, the voice in his head, the shifting layout of the house. But, unlike them, he studied it, mapped it. By the middle of the journal were crude sketches, hallways, rooms, floors that didn't exist on the real blueprint. A place labeled the core mirror, deep below the basement. It wasn't a room, it was a root. A seed planted beneath the house where all the reflections began. There's a center, Ava said. That's where it's strongest. Eli flipped to the final page. And that's where it can be destroyed. Rowan pointed to a phrase near the bottom. Only truth breaks glass. Zeke looked up. Then we tell it everything. No secrets, Ava said. Not one. That night they packed bags. Not because they were leaving, but because they weren't sure they'd come back. They filled water bottles, grabbed flashlights. Rowan poured salt into small jars and stuffed them in her hoodie. Zeke carried a crowbar. Eli wore the necklace Nadia gave him on his birthday, quiet and still. Ava led them to the basement. The door was gone, but the floorboards had shifted, revealing a narrow staircase none of them remembered. The descent felt endless. Walls were made of smooth stone. Lights flickered overhead from bulbs they hadn't seen before. Eventually they reached a chamber, circular. Every inch was mirrored. At the center stood a single, full-length pane of glass, framed in obsidian and gold. It pulsed with an inner light, the core mirror. They stepped inside. Their reflections appeared, distorted, broken, honest. Ava showed her crying, screaming, holding a journal in her hands and burning it. Zeke's showed him cheating on Rowan, regretting it, hating himself. Eli's showed him in a hospital bed, sketch pad beside him, tubes in his arms, no one there to visit. Rowan's showed her lighting a match in a dark room, watching it all go up. They each saw their worst truths, and the mirror spoke. You cannot destroy what you hide. Ava stepped forward. Then we won't hide anymore. She turned to the others, and one by one they confessed. Zeke told Rowan the truth about what he did. His voice broke. Her eyes did too. Eli admitted he'd seen signs before they came to the house, that he didn't say anything because he was scared they'd leave him behind. Rowan said she knew Nadia was in danger. She'd seen it in her dreams, but she didn't want to believe it was real. Ava said she knew the house was wrong since childhood, that her grandfather tried to warn her and she ignored him. They stood there, raw, exposed. The mirror shook. Cracks split down the center. Only truth breaks glass. Ava screamed and threw the journal into the core mirror. It shattered. Glass exploded in every direction. The reflections screamed as they collapsed, folding in, breaking apart like smoke drawn into a flame. The chamber shook. They ran. Back in the living room, the mirrors were all gone. Every last one, even the ones they hadn't found yet. Gone. They stood in the hallway, silent. Then Rowan gasped. At the end of the hall, stepping into view, Nadia. She looked the same, but her eyes were full of tears. "I was so lost," she said. Zeke ran to her, arms wrapping around her like he'd never let go. She was real. She was back. That night, they sat around the fire. No one joked. No one pretended. But they were together. And for now, that was enough. Final chapter. Reflections never die. The bags were already packed. The sun rose over Stillwater Lake in silence. No birds, no breeze, just the sound of the car doors opening and slamming shut one by one. Ava took one last look at the house. It looked smaller now, older, harmless. That was the trick, wasn't it? It always looked like nothing happened. They drove in silence for the first hour. No music, no talking. Just the road. Zeke and Rowan sat in the back, holding hands. Neither of them had said anything about the confession in the mirror room. They didn't need to. Some truths weren't meant to break people, but to finally set them free. Eli stared out the window, sketchpad in his lap, unopened. Nadia rested her head on Ava's shoulder in the front seat. And Ava drove, eyes forward, watching the road like it might shift beneath them. No one looked in the rearview mirror. They made it to the first gas station on the edge of town around noon, a small place, barely alive, with peeling paint and a crooked soda machine. They went in together. Rowan bought gum. Zeke grabbed too many candy bars. Ava asked the cashier if there was a working bathroom. He handed her a key attached to a block of wood. Outside, around the corner. She found the door, unlocked it, and stepped inside. It was small, cold. She turned on the faucet and paused. The mirror above the sink, it wasn't cracked. It wasn't distorted. It just wasn't her. The reflection smiled, not with her mouth, with its own. Back in the car, Rowan opened her gum, chewing with a nervous rhythm. Zeke passed candy back and forth like he couldn't sit still. Nadia watched the trees pass. Eli tapped his pencil on the dashboard, staring at the sky. Ava climbed back in, quiet, started the engine. "Everything good?" Nadia asked. Ava smiled, too wide. "Perfect," she said. The car pulled out of the gas station and drove off. Behind them, the bathroom mirror still shimmered, waiting, watching. And deep in the woods, under the dirt, beneath the shattered chamber, a heartbeat continued. Faint, but steady. Epilogue. Behind the glass. 3 months later. The leaves had changed back home, painting the town in shades of fire and rot. School had started again. The world kept turning, and everyone pretended to be okay. But none of them really were. Zeke barely spoke in class anymore. Rowan dropped her college apps and started keeping a dream journal she refused to let anyone read. Eli stopped drawing completely. And Nadia. Nadia stared at her own reflection just a little too long. Every morning, every night. She didn't say it out loud. Not yet. But she felt it. Something was off. With Ava. They still met up sometimes. Pretended they were whole. Pretended the lake house had faded into the rear view like it was supposed to. But tonight, Rowan sat alone in her bedroom, her journal open in her lap. She'd been writing the same sentence over and over. Ava never asked about Nadia. Ava never cried. Ava never looked in a mirror again. Rowan circled the last line, closed the book, and picked up her phone. She hesitated, then sent a message. "You trust her, right?" Zeke read it at 1:03 in the morning. He never responded. Meanwhile, in the guest room of Ava's house, a large antique mirror leaned against the wall, covered with a bedsheet, undisturbed, forgotten. Until one night, the sheet shifted, and inside, Ava, the real one. Her palms pressed flat against the inside of the glass. Eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. She was still there, still waiting, still watching. Final line. The mirror didn't crack. It just smiled. Author's note. Thank you for reading Whisperglass. This story was more than just a book to me. It was a doorway into a world of fear, friendship, and reflection. And if you made it all the way here, then you stepped through it with me. That means more than I can ever say. My dream isn't just to write books. It's to see them come alive on the big screen in theaters, terrifying and inspiring audiences around the world. With your support, that dream inches closer every day. If this story moved you, chilled you, or kept you turning the page at 3 o'clock in the morning, I ask one thing: follow and support at TOGETHERWEFEAR. That's the heartbeat behind every nightmare I build, every character I break, and every twist I save for the dark. Because without you, the reader, the stories don't live. Thank you for helping this one breathe. Stay sharp, stay brave, and always check the mirror twice. Poe Nocturne.